about hemp today. Go ahead and start the video there, Mr. Braden. Thank you, sir. All right. Good evening and welcome to the McCook Farm and Ranch Expo. And a few years ago, added hemp to that title. It's the McCook Farm, Ranch, and Hemp Expo. Tonight, we're going to talk to some people in the hemp business and several other of us that are curious about it. Feel free to ask questions. We'll be glad to repeat your questions for you. We'll be floating around. If you have questions, we want to get them answered because there's a lot of information up here on the stage. So first of all, I want to introduce to you the one who's on our bill. On the poster himself, that was Mr. Justin Loeffler. Justin Loeffler is here from Wyoming Hemp Company. Industrial hemp is his specialty, but it didn't start out that way. We're going to learn a lot from Justin. And then on the flip side of the coin, another Justin that many of you may be familiar with, who's been here for many of these trade shows now, several years, Justin Harris from Wild Ass Hemp Company or Wild Ass Soap Company. We want to give him a hand too. He's well-known and really moving and shaking and doing some great things. And you're going to find out from our other counterpart, Justin, just what he's doing. Also on the stage with us, as we walked up, I introduced Darren Dale. So grateful for Darren and for his life and for his recovery and for everything that has gotten better and better over the years. It's not always the possibility that we get to hear Darren on the microphone or on the telephone because of the electronics issues, but now we're going to give it a shot and see if we can't get some time in with Darren tonight. So we appreciate him very much. And let's give him a hand again. Thank you. All right. And young and up and coming and leading the way, Mr. Chance Cutter, our president of Star Expos, taking the lead. So thank you to the vendors who have responded to him. Just keep that relationship going. Thank you so much, Chance, for what you're doing. Appreciate you, Chance. All right, let's get it. I'm Brian Hale, and I got roped into this, and I'm glad because I like to talk. But I'm going to finish talking and just ask a few questions along the way because we have some experts here, and I want to hear from them, and that's what's most important when you're interviewing somebody. So I might be shouting some questions, but I'll be near the camera, and we'll see if we can't get those things answered. So first off, I want to say welcome again, and we are going to start off hearing from Justin Loeffler, the one who's on this time frame. The reason these others have joined along is because Justin is sharing the stage. He said, hey, let's get everybody up here and let's talk, let's learn a lot together, and so we appreciate his graciousness of sharing the stage with us. So without further ado, as Shakespeare would say, I'm going to get out of the way, and we're going to hear from Justin Loeffler. Thank you very much. Let's give Justin a hand.
Thanks, Brian. Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, go ahead and speak up.
Are you good?
Yep. All right.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Justin Loeffler. I'm with the Wyoming Hemp Company based out of Hot Springs, Wyoming. We started in 2020 with the emphasis on bringing industrialized hemp to Wyoming. Over the last couple of years, we've explored a ton of different product ideas to really kind of see where we would actually fit and kind of move this large quantity mentality that needs to happen in the industrial hemp industry to really justify those acres being grown. And one of the products that we came up with was animal bedding. And animal bedding is one of those ones that we can actually suffice the large quantities on. That's what we need for our large acre farmers. Not bougie small acres. We're looking for large acres. But along with that comes with the understanding of what the bottleneck in the industry actually is. So right now, you look at the current crops that we grow, row crop, corn, soybeans, beets, and we have the equipment, we have the infrastructure to suffice that. But as we look at industrialized hemp right now, that's a major thing missing in the industry, is the ability to process this stuff at a large scale. Some of you might have a little bit of history or know the history behind industrialized hemp or CBD. 2019 was the first year after the 2018 Farm Bill that the acres were grown, and everybody it was like the gold rush. And so what we saw was throughout the United States, 117,000 or 118,000 acres were grown, and about 22,000 of those acres could actually be processed. So there was a huge missing piece in the industry, which was processing facilities and infrastructure. That led to a huge market crash and a lot of people getting punched in the face by the industrialized hemp industry. So what we looked at as we moved on to 2020 was really, first of all, will it grow? Where will it grow? because a lot of the stuff that was being grown was in Kentucky on the East Coast or on the West Coast. So us being from Wyoming, we decided that let's do a couple trials and see how it grew. And surprisingly enough, we broke the national average our first year, because normally the average is around 4.5 ton, and we broke 5.2 ton per acre. A lot of that had to do with our arid environment and our geographical location. So after we understood that it grew, and it grew well, it fit right in with our hay and forage people. So we actually have a pretty good demographic to be able to grow that in Wyoming. And so the next piece was the processing side of it, or the milling side of it. Current equipment out there right now, after a farmer grows it and brings it in, a lot of the equipment out there will only process this stuff at about 1.5 ton to 5 ton per hour, and that's just not enough. That equates to about 800 acres a year per facility. If we're going to grow tens of thousands of acres of this, we need facilities like a Western Sugar or Schooler Grains, and big facilities to be able to allow our farmers to come in and sell their crop. The avenues that are happening right now are vast. If some of you are keeping on top of this, you might have heard that Texas A&M received a $3.5 million grant to be able to research 3D hempcrete printing. Kansas State University right now is on their second year on a livestock feed trial. So these things are actually happening, and I'm sure some of you are aware of the lumber. Is anybody in here bought a really expensive piece of plywood lately? Because that's where the big flags came up, was we needed to find alternative building materials, and hemp fits the bill. So we really feel that we're on the cusp of something. It is coming down the line. It's going to be those early adopters that are going to lead the charge.
Well, Justin, what are, we hear this industrial hemp. We hear about the products, and you went over a few of them, but kind of goes over some of our heads on what actually can this stuff that you're making be used for. I mean, take us back a little bit in history on how things used to be made, maybe? We were talking earlier on this, right?
Yes, absolutely. So hemp has been used for centuries. Actually, a lot of the early explorers used to carry the seeds with them because it was easy for them to grow, carry with them on the ships. But many uses of the plant itself. So not only for the grain on food, but a lot of the sails and the ropes and paper products were made out of this. The Declaration of Independence is actually written on hemp paper. So it was, I think, in the early 1900s when the cotton gin came out. Cotton gin was the equipment that could process cotton, and like I've told you, hemp is incredibly difficult to mill. You're looking at a crop that produces 4 commodities. You've got seed, flower, fiber, and hurd. And out of that, you've got to be able to separate all 4 of those. So if you're using all 4 of those constituents. So yes, in the beginning stages, or the beginning days, hemp was vastly used. And so after cotton took over, we saw it kind of diminish, and now it's making a comeback.
Is the challenge that separating those 4 parts, and who uses all 4, or are the industries all split on those 4 parts? How's that work for you?
Yeah, so our mentality at the Wyoming Hemp Company is we really want to take a large grain elevator approach. So as we start to look at the industry leaders, so like you look at Basscore, Bear Fiber, Buffalo 3D printing, these are all companies that use all different parts of that plant. So the fiber needs to go to a post-processor and get it cottonized. The hurd needs to be milled down into whatever specification that person's going to need. As we start to see the grain side come on, there's going to be grain needs for cattle and animal supplements. The flour right now on industrialized hemp, it's not really recommended to use for CBD production because it's just not high in those the CBD side or the terpene side. So on the fiber side, we just focus on the 3 main constituents, and then there are CBD varieties out there for the oils and certain things like that.
So let's switch gears just a little bit, not really, but a different aspect of usages of CBD from Justin over here at Wild Ass Soap Company. What in the world are we talking about with soap? How do we use soap? How does it fit there, Justin? Tell us that.
So we, can you hear me? So, so yeah, we've got kind of two entities with our Wild Ass business. We've got the Wild Ass Soap Co. side, and then we've got the Wild Ass Hemp Farm. And although we do have a couple of bars of CBD soap, generally what we're doing is we're producing soap using hemp seed oil as one of the ingredients. It's one of the luxury oils that we put in our soap. And then we've got our CBD side of the business, which is the Wild Ass Hemp Farm branded products. And, you know, so like everything that Justin said is exactly what I would have said. You know, we saw the same thing happen in 2019 from Nebraska that was happening all over the country. And we, you know, continued into 2020 and 2021, and it still continues today. But so we're kind of doing a little bit of everything too with hemp. And I guess, you know, where our little niche is like I've been saying for, you know, 3 years to everybody is, you know, everything that's great about hemp, whether it be for CBD or hemp seed oil or fiber, and there has to be consumer demand. You know, there has to be consumer demand and production capabilities, and it's a chicken or the egg thing. You know, do we need to have the demand and then we can build the infrastructure, or do we need the infrastructure so that we can supply, you know, meet the demand? And so what we kind of just fell into or decided or evolved into really rapidly is we want to help create consumer demand. So what we're doing with our soap, with the Wild Ass Soap Co. is it's kind of a multifaceted consumer demand. We feel like we're making probably one of the more original natural soap products on the market, because not only are we using hemp seed oil and all of our different variety of bars, but we're also, most of our soap is made using animal fats like beef tallow and lard. And you don't really see that on the market anymore. Everybody's gone to palm oil, which is extraordinarily bad for the planet, because in order to produce palm oil, you have to either bulldoze or burn down rainforests. The only place that palm grows is 10 degrees within the equator, north or south, and that is virtually all of our rainforest areas of South America, Indonesia, and Africa. I always think it's funny because I think it's like 95% of the people in this country still consider themselves omnivores or carnivores, you know? But yet you've got all these soap companies out there, national brands and regional brands, and they've got their little Hop and Bunny logos that they're animal cruelty free. And I feel like, you know, growing up in cattle country, that animal cruelty free signage is almost kind of a slap in the face, because they make you out that if you use any kind of animal product or eat meat, then you are by definition cruel to animals, which is far from the case of anybody that's grown up in cattle country. You know, we're not cruel to animals. And so what we're doing is we're making really good soap, we're having a lot of fun, and we're also promoting animal agriculture at the same time we're promoting the hemp industry. And so I feel kind of like we've got a torch to carry for those two things. And but anyway, you know, back to hemp, and then we've got our Wild Ass Hemp Farm. And so for the last 3 years, we've been growing CBD hemp, which in my mind, having seen both plants up close, you know, I feel like we're basically growing like, we're not really growing industrial hemp for our CBD. We're kind of growing marijuana light. Is, you know, our plants are basically, you know, they're all cannabis sativa plants, but our plants are more like a marijuana plant, except they've been bred to produce very low amounts of THC. But luckily our plants produce just enough THC that they remain compliant, but they also add that THC into the final cannabinoid content of our extract, which makes it that much better of a product, because we do promote full spectrum. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there on the market, and a lot of these CBD companies that popped up in the last 2 years really promote that they have zero THC. To me, that's kind of like, you know, I don't know, a good analogy, but I just don't. To me, that's something that I wouldn't promote. I mean, I would promote that we've got full spectrum. We've got a lot of cannabinoids. We've got a lot of terpenes, and a lot of that is because of the way that we chose to have our hemp, our flower extracted. we're not like some of these big CBD farms, where they'll go out with a, big piece of equipment or, combine or a thresher or something and just, we don't harvest the whole plant. We basically just harvest the sugar leaf and the flower, and we take that to our extractor, and all of our hemp is extracted with reverse osmosis ice water. It's a solvent-free extraction method, so there's no hydrocarbons, no alcohol. It's not even CO2 extraction, and CO2 is, harmless. But the problem is it still has to be, the crude has to be cleaned up through a high heat process. So our extraction never goes through a high heat process, and that's how we're preserving all of our terpenes that the plant grew naturally. The cannabis plant, I can't remember. I don't. We've got QR codes on our products, and we've been busy. I apologize. I did not get my QR codes printed on my little Dymo printer. But if you scan our QR code, it'll pull up our full panel test for our extract that our gummies and our tinctures are made from. And you can see that, there's a mycotoxin report, there's a heavy metal test, there's the pesticide test, and there's also a full cannabinoid test, so you can see every single minor cannabinoid that's in there that's testable or detectable. And then, but there's also a terpene test that they do, so you can see what terpenes like pinene and citronine, and I can't even remember all the enes for the terpenes, but there's about 8 or 9 different terpenes in there, and it will show you the amount of that terpene. And every single strain of cannabis will have a different profile when it comes to the terpenes and the cannabinoids. So we're just a very, very all natural company. There's a big CBD world out there, and I know my extractor, they've run into some roadblocks out there in the CBD industry where there's a formulator that wants to know, they're interested in this solvent-free extract, but they want this exact content, like this stuff has to have X amount of CBD and X amount of CBG or X amount of this, and it's like, well, that's not. This is a full plant natural extraction method. We're basically just taking what the plant grew and just through temperature and friction, we're just pulling those trichomes off the plant surface, the flower surface, and what our plant grew is what this extract has. We're not isolating this cannabinoid and that terpene and this cannabinoid, and it's just, this is how Mother Nature wanted us to consume this cannabis plant. That's what we decided to focus on. And we feel like it's a better way. It's more expensive and it's very low yielding way to extract cannabinoids, but it's very high quality, and it's really cool because you go through your busy life and you don't stop to smell the roses, but when you sit here and you stop and think about the fact that in the last 4 years, I don't know if I've taken a single ibuprofen. I don't think I've taken a single Advil for anything. And my knees hurt like crazy at my day job when we're, physical manual labor, and I've got CBD salves for my knees, and I've got gummies for, everything else. But, my wife, for 4 years now, has barely touched the Advils and ibuprofens, which they're bad for your liver. You can't live off that stuff. And yeah, it's a little bit, it's a little bit pricier of a way to treat your aches and pains, but boy, I can't help but think that we're not healthier for it in the long run. But that's kind of our little side, we're not doing anything big and on scale, but we're, I think a lot of that was in 19 when the whole bottom fell out of the industry. We didn't really want to stick our neck out because we saw a lot of failures, a heck of a lot of failures. We saw failures right here at home. Everybody, it was like a go big or go home mentality, and the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And we stayed little. We wanted to stay little to where we could manage it as a family, and our family, the whole family gets involved. Well, some more than others, but yeah.
Do you get any work out of this guy?
Not much. He's more of the pretty face behind the business, I guess, right? He's like our spokesperson. He's our magazine model.
Well, Justin, you brought up so many good points, and it made me want to ask questions. But I want to pause for just a moment and see if we have anyone else that has any questions. You guys want to jump in on a question anytime? If you have a question, sir, yes, question over here.
our
Let's
plant,
repeat the question for him, please.
Yeah. So what's left? We harvest.
Repeat his question, please.
Oh, the question was, what do we do with the leftover plant? Because all we're harvesting is the sugar leaf and the flower components, and because to raise CBD, you have to raise feminized plants. You cannot have males. You cannot have seed. So we buy certified feminized seed from a reputable farm, and we try to keep the males away. In Southwest Nebraska, it's hard because we've got feral hemp everywhere, in every canyon bottom and every road ditch. And I never realized how much feral hemp there was in Southwest Nebraska until we decided we were going to grow female plants. That summer, the summer of 2020, everywhere I went, there's ditchweed. It's everywhere. I'm like, oh my God. I guess I thought it was ragweed or kochia, or something, from a distance. I never paid attention. And, once we put females in the ground and they started growing, then I started realizing it's everywhere. And so the plant, back to the plant, our plants are big, bushy, wide, branchy plants. They'll 6 feet tall, 6 feet wide. And they don't really lend themselves, and we're only growing 300 plants, a year. There's not enough plants to really do anything, but they don't go to waste. So what we do is we hand strip all the, by the middle of October, most of the big palmate leaves that don't have a lot of action attached to them, they've pretty much desiccated, with the fall weather. Mostly what's left is the juicy, sticky leaves that have the trichomes on them. So after we've hand harvested, we just leave the plants in place for the winter, and then we'll grind them up into the top couple inches of soil this spring. Once they've dried down, we'll go in there with the rototiller on the back of the tractor, and we'll just grind everything up and return it back to the soil.
Did that answer your question, sir?
So you don't, the plant can't be used for fiber then?
I suppose it could be, but the decortication machines, they want a different shape of plant. They want a different type of a plant to run through a decortication plant.
Can you speak about
like
decortication here,
Justin's
Justin?
got?
So they want to go more with
No, they want to go with something that probably looks more like silage cane.
Yeah, so can you hear me now? There you go. So on the fiber side, so yes, the fiber plants being planted about 45 pounds to the acre, very, very thick planting. The stock will get about the size of my thumb. It'll grow about 12 to 14 foot tall. So the leaves aren't really on it. It all kind of sheds off. And the decortication process, like Justin was getting into, it is a very cumbersome process. So you either are going for one or the other in today's equipment. So you're either going fiber or you're going to go herd. The fiber process is when they're looking for like a textile grade fiber, it's like cottonized. So you have to take out the lignin, which is the natural glue that holds the fibers together. That's called our retting process in the field. And you want that broke down, and then by the time that rets and you process it out, and you send it into a almost like a needling, like they do with wool, and they comb that out, and then they post-process it again. So it's a very cumbersome process. Yes. The stocks, though, like Justin was talking about, stock material is stock material. So the herd on the inside, your CBD plants are going to get a lot wider, so they're about 2.5 to 3 inches thick. And from there, you can actually sell those, and we can use that for animal bedding and the wood side of things. Yes.
So this week, is basically using it, nobody can use it for anything. I mean,
True.
As a product.
Yeah. So there was a company trying to, industrialized hemp is a little bit different. So the feral weed that we're talking about that's out there in the river bottoms and stuff like that, it's not really the same kind of durability. So industrialized hemp is bred for the fiber and that durability piece. The feral side is more of a just, it kind of regrows and it just shows up. There's not a lot you can do with that.
Well, I know when I cut it down in the canyon below me, it's tough.
Yes. There was a company in Scotts Bluff that was working with the University of Nebraska to try to do a propagation program where they were going to take feral weed and mix it with industrial, because it was so durable, right? It was so durable. I don't know if they got any traction on that, but they were working on it because they're like, if this stuff will work in the ditches and it'll keep coming back, why aren't we not utilizing that, right? Yeah. So I think a lot of it has to do with, like Justin was talking about with cross-pollination. You start getting into some of that and you start running it for grain production, that's gonna run a major problem. So yes, great question though.
Now I have a question for you. I had a circle of this within a mile of my house.
Okay.
Brian Schaefer from around Culbertson, right?
Okay.
Now we got hailed out on the 9th of July and meant we planted soybeans. He replanted that. The first time he planted it with a planter. The second time he used an air seeder.
Yep.
Now, you know, all summer long, what the hell is this? Now it's an insurable crop. What kind of insurance are you talking about?
Right. So okay. So this gentleman had a circle. It got hailed out, planted with a row crop, just a regular planter. Then your neighbor came in with an air seeder, and now you're talking about the crop insurance. So fortunately, the last 2 years, crop insurance has been available through certain providers, but the insurance only covers your input costs. So there's no yield. So like when you have a corn crop or a hay crop, you know what your tonnage is per acre, you know what your bushels per acre are. We don't have that. All we have is our inputs. So when you get an insurance policy for industrialized hemp, it's going to cover all of your inputs. So your seed, your fertilizer, and your fuel, but not what you would have got on the back
How many
end.
dollars are we talking about there?
It's pretty comparable to regular crop insurance. It's nothing astronomical. I do know that our first year in 2019, when we grew our big CBD crop, our insurance policy on 60 acres was going to be like $75,000. And that was a specialty deal because they didn't have insurance then. But they do have insurance now.
Now they swapped this and bailed it. And I don't know where it went. I have never talked to Brian since then. Now, in January of every year, the people from Colorado come out to my place and shoot doe deer. And there's a kid there from downtown Denver that he has 4 people working for him, and he manufactures the lotion or the medical stuff or whatever. He says all the hemp that he buys is from Canada because it's way better quality.
Yeah, so to answer that question, so the question was, or the statement was, there's a gentleman from Denver coming out and he's saying that he's buying all of his hemp from Canada. And rightfully so. Europe or Canada, they've been in the industry a heck of a lot longer than we have. We currently have companies from India and China and Europe that have come to the United States because we have the best farmers. But yet we haven't been able to get it milled down into a process or into a format or a large enough quantity for them to actually justify putting up bigger facilities. So they're looking at us, especially our agricultural side, because we do. I mean, I was talking to a gentleman earlier today. He said the exact same, the thing that got us in trouble the first time is we're really good at what we do, and we'll be the first ones to outgrow everybody, and the market will go down.
So what's the worth of time?
What's that?
That final product if you roll it up in a round bale.
So what we're looking at, or at least our company, so going back to what we do, Wyoming Hemp Company wants to be that elevator. We want to be able to be the group that buys the commodity from the farmer, bring it in, and then separate it into its larger parts and then sell those off. Right now what you're looking at is an average of 3 ton per acre, 3 to 4 ton per acre is a pretty decent number. You're looking at anywhere between $1,500 and $1,800 an acre return.
Hold up. Now the crop adjuster was there visiting because most of the dryland crops go down to irrigated Now he said in that circle, you know, it looked like to me there was a plant every 20 feet. But he said there was male and female in that.
Yeah.
And the female didn't look like the male.
No, so what'll happen is after the male gets done pollinating, it dies. So when you get done, probably around that end of August time frame, you'll see that pollination. You can definitely tell the males from the females in fiber. I won't be crude, but they do have little balls on them, and so as they pollinate, you can see those open up, and then immediately the